My name is Evelyn Carter. At 33, I've carved a path for myself as a marketing executive, a role I take pride in. My life, outwardly perfect, is married to a complexity named Alex. Lately, his actions have been painting my days with shades of doubt. It started subtly. Alex, usually punctual, began coming home late under the guise of work pressures. But the corporate world, my world, whispers truths that aren't always spoken. His excuses seemed more like fiction each day. Then came the clandestine phone calls, his voice a hushed melody of secrecy. When confronted, he'd brush it off with a feigned look of confusion, an act not worthy of any stage. My suspicions deepened when I overheard fragments of a phone call. Miranda, the plan, Evelyn won't know. Miranda, Alex's sister, whom I'd always found unsettling with her sharp gaze and sharper tongue. Were they plotting something against me? My heart raced with a mix of fear and anger, but fear never did suit me. I chose the armor of preparation over the shroud of ignorance. Yet in front of Alex, I donned a mask of obliviousness. Mine? What do you mean? I'd ask with feigned innocence when he mentioned a trip I knew nothing about. Inside, I was piecing together a puzzle whose picture I dreaded to see. Our story wasn't always shadowed like this. We met at a company mixer, his charm as evident as my ambition. Our relationship, a whirlwind of dinners and moonlit walks, soon led to sharing a home. But as my career soared, his stagnated, and with it, his demeanor changed. The man I fell for seemed like a distant memory, replaced by a stranger with the same face. I knew confrontation wouldn't peel away the layers of deceit. Not yet. Instead, I observed, waited, and planned. Little did Alex know I was no damsel in distress, but a queen strategizing her next move in a game he thought he controlled. In my moments of solitude, I often wondered how love could morph into a battlefield of egos and secrets. But there was no time for such reflections. The chessboard was laid out, and it was my move. Alex had once been a beacon of light in my life, but now he was the source of a gnawing unease that settled in my stomach like a lead weight. It wasn't always like this. When we first met, I was struck by his charisma and easy laugh. Our early days were filled with laughter and love. I remember him being genuinely impressed by my rapid rise in the corporate world. But as my career trajectory soared, his stalled. The laughter faded, replaced by a simmering resentment that he tried and failed to hide. His sister Miranda was a different story altogether. From the first day I met her, I sensed a coldness in her eyes, a calculative mind behind her polite smiles. When Alex and I announced our engagement, her congratulations were laced with a hint of disdain, as if she couldn't believe her brother chose someone like me. The turning point came one balmy evening when Miranda paid an unexpected visit. Her request was as audacious as it was unexpected. A loan of a significant sum, supposedly for some urgent need. The way she casually demanded $5,000 under the pretense of familial obligation set off alarms in my mind. I agreed, but not without my conditions, a legally binding promissory note. It seemed to irk her, the idea of being bound by legalities to her brother's wife, but her desperation was evident. She agreed, albeit begrudgingly. This encounter gave me a glimpse into the dynamics of Alex and Miranda's relationship, a peculiar mix of dependency and manipulation. It was then I realized that whatever game they were playing, it was one they were accustomed to, with rules they made up as they went along. The following weeks were a blur of late nights and early mornings, as I threw myself into my work, seeking solace in the one place I felt in control. Meanwhile, Alex's behavior grew increasingly erratic, his mood swinging wildly from sullen silence to flashes of anger. I was playing a dangerous game, but I was not one to back down. Alex and Miranda may have been plotting in the shadows, but I was no stranger to strategy. In the world of corporate marketing, foresight and planning were everything, and I was about to put those skills to use in a way I never imagined. Life, I had learned, was like a game of chess. Every move mattered, and sometimes you had to sacrifice a pawn to capture a queen. As I sat in my office, the city lights twinkling like distant stars, I realized the game I was unwittingly a part of was reaching a critical juncture. The unraveling began on a Thursday evening, the kind that promised tranquility but delivered turmoil. Alex had grown increasingly distant, his presence in our home like a ghost. There, yet not quite. It was on this evening that I discovered the betrayal that turned my simmering suspicions into a roaring inferno. I had logged into our joint account to pay some bills, a mundane task that soon turned into a shocking revelation. There it was, in cold hard numbers, a withdrawal of $8,000. Money that I had saved from my days as a single woman, earmarked for a future where dreams and reality aligned. The confrontation that followed was as bitter as it was revealing. Alex, caught off guard, oscillated between defensiveness and guilt. His excuses were weak, his justifications weaker. It was clear this wasn't an impulsive act, but a calculated move, encouraged, no doubt, by Miranda. Sleep evaded me that night. The man I had shared my life with had become a stranger, his actions a clear declaration of war. And in war, as in love, all is fair. The next day, I made 2 calls, the first to a divorce attorney, known for her ruthlessness and efficacy, the second to a private investigator, a necessary ally in the impending battle. If Alex and Miranda were plotting against me, I needed ammunition of my own. In the days that followed, my home felt like a battlefield, the air thick with unspoken words and veiled threats. Alex's late-night whispers on the phone with Miranda became more frequent, their plans, whatever they were, seemingly reaching fruition. But amidst this brewing storm, I found an unexpected ally. Michael, Miranda's husband, called me out of the blue. His voice, laced with equal parts confusion and frustration, mirrored my own feelings. "Is Miranda there?" he asked, a simple question that opened the floodgates of shared grievances. He, too, had noticed changes in Miranda, her secretive behavior, and sudden needs for money. It wasn't long before we pieced together the puzzle. Our spouses were not just siblings, they were partners in deceit. The plan we hatched was born of desperation and determination. If Alex and Miranda wanted a game, we would give them one to remember. Michael and I, united by our shared betrayal, were about to turn the tables. The world of deceit that Alex and Miranda had woven was intricate, but in their arrogance, they had overlooked one crucial element, the resilience of those they sought to manipulate. As I sat across from Michael in a quiet cafe, a plan began to take shape, one that would turn the hunters into the hunted. Michael, a quiet, unassuming man, had been enduring Miranda's manipulative tactics for years. His story was a mirror to mine, a tale of love turning sour, trust giving way to betrayal. As we talked, an alliance formed, not just of circumstance, but of understanding. We realized that our spouses were planning a trip, a lavish affair funded by the money they siphoned from us. The thought of them reveling at our expense fueled our resolve. We needed to act, and our window of opportunity was narrowing. The plan was simple, yet daring. We would let the trip proceed, but with a twist. Alex and Miranda would find their resources suddenly cut off, stranded far from their comfort zone. We anticipated their panic, their realization that they were not as untouchable as they believed. To set the trap, I switched Alex's credit card with an expired gym membership card, a decoy he wouldn't suspect until it was too late. Michael, on his end, ensured that their travel funds would be mysteriously frozen upon their arrival. As D-Day approached, I watched Alex pack with a feigned disinterest. He was brimming with excitement, a child oblivious to the looming storm. "You'll miss me?" he asked, a sly grin on his face. "Immensely," I replied, my voice dripping with sarcasm he was too blind to notice. The day they left, I felt a sense of liberation, mixed with apprehension. Part of me wanted to confront Alex, to unleash the storm of words I had held back. But the greater part knew that this silence was more potent than any words I could muster. Michael and I kept in touch, updating each other on any developments. As expected, the first sign of trouble came soon after their arrival. Alex's frantic calls, filled with confusion and anger, were music to my ears. "The card's not working," he exclaimed, panic seeping through his bravado. I feigned ignorance, savoring the moment. "That's strange. Maybe you should call the bank," I suggested, my voice a mask of concern. As the days passed, their plight grew. Stranded without funds, Alex and Miranda's facade crumbled. They were exposed, vulnerable, and for the first time at our mercy. As the days ticked by, the satisfaction of watching Alex and Miranda flounder in their ill-conceived plot was tinged with a bittersweet realization. The end of my marriage, no matter how tainted it had become, was an irrevocable change to the life I had built. I received sporadic updates from Michael, who managed to keep a stoic front despite the chaos unraveling in his own life. Our plan had worked better than we had hoped. With their funds inaccessible and their credit cards declined, Alex and Miranda were stranded, forced to face the consequences of their actions. Their calls became more frequent and increasingly desperate. Alex, once so sure of himself, was now reduced to a mix of pleading and threats. "Evelyn, you need to send money. This isn't funny anymore," he demanded during one call. His voice, once sweet and loving, now held a venom that I had become all too familiar with, but I remained unmoved. "I'm sorry, Alex, but I can't help you," I replied, my voice steady. His shock was palpable, even through the phone. For the first time in our marriage, I was not bending to his will. Meanwhile, Miranda's facade of the doting sister and devoted wife crumbled. Reports from Michael painted a picture of a woman unraveling at the seams, her manipulative nature exposed for all to see. As the week drew to a close, Alex and Miranda's plight reached its peak. With limited options, they were forced to rely on the kindness of their travel companions, a humbling experience for two people who had always looked down on others. The day they were due to return, I felt a mix of relief and apprehension. I knew this was not the end, but merely the beginning of a new chapter. As I waited for Alex's return, I prepared myself for the confrontation that was inevitable. When Alex finally walked through the door, his usual arrogance was gone, replaced by a quiet defeat. His eyes met mine, searching for a sign of the wife he once knew, but I was no longer that person. "Evelyn, he began, his voice trailing off. I cut him off, my voice firm. "Save it, Alex. I know everything." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of unspoken truths and shattered illusions. In that moment, I realized that this was not just a victory for me, but a liberation from a life that was no longer mine. The game was over, and I had emerged not just unscathed, but stronger. The aftermath of Alex and Miranda's ill-fated trip was a period of reckoning, both legally and emotionally. The house that once echoed with laughter and love now reverberated with the cold, hard truths of betrayal and deceit. Alex's return marked the beginning of a series of confrontations, each more heated than the last. Our conversations, once filled with dreams and plans for the future, were now battlegrounds where words were wielded like swords. But amidst the anger and the hurt, there was an undercurrent of something else: freedom. My meetings with the divorce attorney became a regular part of my routine. Each session was a step towards liberating myself from the shackles of a marriage that had turned toxic. The attorney, a woman of sharp intellect and fierce determination, was my guide through the labyrinth of legal proceedings. Meanwhile, Michael filed for divorce from Miranda. The alliance that had started as a means to an end had blossomed into a friendship grounded in mutual respect and understanding. We often found solace in each other's company, sharing our experiences and healing from our collective wounds. As the divorce proceedings progressed, the true extent of Alex and Miranda's duplicity came to light. Financial statements, bank records, and the private investigators' reports painted a damning picture of their betrayal. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but one that fortified my resolve to see this through. The day the divorce was finalized was a day of mixed emotions: relief, sadness, but above all, a sense of closure. I had walked into the courtroom as Alex's wife, but I walked out as Evelyn Carter, independent, strong, and free. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into my work, channeling my energies into the one place where I felt in control. My efforts did not go unnoticed, and soon I was offered a promotion, a recognition of my dedication and hard work. Life after divorce was a journey of rediscovery. The world, once viewed through the lens of my marriage to Alex, now opened up in a myriad of possibilities. I found joy in the small things: a quiet evening with a book, a coffee with Michael, who had become a pillar of support and a dear friend. As I stood on my balcony one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple, I realized that this was not the end of my story, but the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where I was the author and the possibilities were endless. The end of my marriage to Alex had closed a tumultuous chapter in my life, but as with all endings, it heralded a new beginning. The world, once narrowed by the confines of a strained relationship, now lay open before me, ripe with possibilities. In the months following the divorce, I found myself evolving, shedding the remnants of a past that no longer defined me. My promotion at work was not just a career milestone. It was a testament to my resilience, a badge of honor earned through adversity. Michael, too, had embarked on a journey of self-discovery. Our shared experiences had forged a bond that was both unexpected and profound. Our coffee meetings became a regular part of our lives, a space where we could share, laugh, and heal. There was a comfort in his presence, a sense of understanding that went beyond words. As we navigated our new realities, our friendship deepened, blossoming into something more. It was a gradual shift, a natural progression from shared pain to shared joy. Michael was no longer just a friend. He had become a confidant, a partner in every sense of the word. One evening, as we walked along the riverside, the city lights reflecting off the water like stars in a night sky, Michael stopped and turned to me. "Evelyn," he said, his voice tinged with a mixture of nervousness and sincerity, "these past months with you have been a journey I never expected, but one I'm grateful for every day. You've become so much more than a friend to me." His words echoed my own feelings, a sentiment I had kept nestled in my heart. "Michael," I replied, my hand finding his, "I feel the same. You've been my rock, my laughter in the darkness. I can't imagine my life without you in it." As we stood there, hand in hand, the world around us faded into a blur. In that moment, there was only us, two souls that had found solace and strength in each other. Life, I had come to realize, was an unpredictable journey, a tapestry woven with threads of joy, pain, love, and loss. But it was these very threads that gave it depth and color, turning it into a masterpiece of experiences. As I looked ahead, I saw a future filled with hope and possibilities, a future where I was no longer defined by my past, but by the choices I made and the person I had become. The road ahead was uncharted, but I was ready to embrace whatever it held, with Michael by my side.